This presentation will introduce you to the method used to determine the credibility of a source. Although there are many criteria to consider when determining if a source is credible, this presentation only covers the author. The same process is used for the other criteria. Purdue University says the authors must be respected in their fields of study. Also, they must cite the sources they have used in their papers. This way, the reader can check for accuracy of the information, how well the sources actually support the writing. In addition, a respected author should have worked in his or her field of study for at least 5 years and/or have at least a master's degree. This means that there are credible sources who do not have graduate degrees. An example is a police officer who has worked in law enforcement for 10 years but does not have a graduate degree in criminal justice. Now let's look at a couple of sources to determine if the authors are credible. The first site is Energy from Shale. It looks very professional and is well done. Impressive, isn't it? An impressive website is not necessarily credible. We need to look further. North Dakota is a good place to begin since so much of the fracking in the U.S. is being done there. The article is written by Mark J. Perry of the American Enterprise Institute. Since I have never heard of Mark Perry or the American Enterprise Institute, I will Google both. I went to Wikipedia for more information on American Enterprise Institute. Yes, I can hear you screaming now. But this is Wikipedia and you told us not to use Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be used to get background information, but not as a source to be used. Notice there are numerous citations here that back up what is said about this organization. It puts the organization as a right-wing, pro-business think tank that is dedicated to research and education on issues of government. Even if you are very conservative, you should be aware that this site is biased toward conservative idealism and will not be open-minded to anything else. Now let's look at Mark Perry. Perry is listed in the scholars who write for the Institute, but what exactly are his qualifications? Let's see. We see he is a visiting scholar/professor and assistant professor of several organizations. He has an MA and a PhD in economics. This definitely gives him the educational credentials. Now, can we say that this is a credible author? He must be ultra-conservative if he writes for a right-wing think tank, so he has a conservative agenda. Beware of authors with an agenda unless that is what you are writing about. He is qualified to write on the economy because of his education. If it has to do with the economics of fracking, he could be considered a credible source. If you wanted information as to what fracking was and how it affected the environment, no, he wouldn't be a credible source. In addition, there are no references as to where any of the material was found, but his contact information is available. I would consider this a credible author, but I would keep in mind his agenda. What would make this author truly credible would be to have the paper he wrote on hydraulic fracturing be academically peer-reviewed. What about this source? This is a source from EBSCOhost. I chose academic peer-reviewed journals and linked full text. But when I chose references available, there were no results. Remember, one of the criteria for credible authors is they list their references. The sources in this category have references as footnotes and not in a references list at the end of the paper. EBSCOhost doesn't recognize footnotes as references. Just the fact that this is a source out of a peer-reviewed journal automatically means that this is a credible source as far as the author is concerned. So the easiest way to find sources that have credible authors is to go to EBSCOhost and find them. Here's the criteria for determining a credible author. Use this and the criteria for other areas to determine if your sources are credible or not.